The morning sky over New York City changed forever at exactly 9:47 a.m. Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee on the observation deck of the orbital station Centaur when the alert started screaming. His coffee mug hit the floor and shattered as he stared at the massive shape appearing through the clouds below. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The alien ship looked like someone had carved it from a single piece of crystal. It was the size of Manhattan, floating silently above the city without making any sound or showing any exhaust trails. The morning sun hit its surface and broke into rainbow patterns that danced across the buildings below. Jake grabbed his communication device and called the bridge. "Admiral Rodriguez, are you seeing this?" "I'm seeing it, Captain," came the reply. "And it's not just New York. We have identical ships over London, Tokyo, and Moscow." All appeared at the same time. Jake ran to the bridge as fast as he could. The Centaur was Earth's primary defense station, orbiting high above the planet. From here, they could see everything. When he arrived, the bridge was chaos. Officers were running between computer stations, trying to make sense of what was happening. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez stood in the center of it all, calm as always. She was a small woman with gray hair, but everyone on the station respected her. She had been in space longer than anyone else and had seen things that would make most people quit their jobs. "Report," Jake said as he reached her side. "4 ships, all identical, all appeared at the same moment," she said. "No energy signatures before they showed up, no warnings. They just appeared out of nowhere." Lieutenant Bobby Chun looked up from his station. He was young, maybe 25, and this was his first assignment in space. "Admiral, we're getting a transmission. It's coming from all 4 ships at once." "Put it on the main screen," Rodriguez ordered. The screen flickered and then showed something that made everyone on the bridge stop talking. The alien was tall, maybe 8 feet, with silver skin that seemed to glow. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face, and when it spoke, its voice was perfect English. "People of Earth," the alien said, "we are the Keltharam Protectorate. For thousands of years, we have watched over young worlds like yours. We have protected them from the dangers that exist in space." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The alien's voice was too perfect, too smooth. It reminded him of a salesman trying to sell something expensive. "We have come to offer you the same protection we have given to over 300 worlds in this galaxy," the alien continued. "There are terrible things in space. The Devourers eat entire planets. The Void Hunters capture whole populations. The Machine Plague turns civilizations into slaves. We can protect you from all of these threats." Rodriguez crossed her arms. "What's the catch?" she whispered. As if the alien had heard her, it smiled. The expression looked wrong on its face. "We ask for very little in return. Only 30% of your planet's resources each year, and we must oversee your military development to ensure you remain safe." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. 30%? Jake said. "That's not a little. That's enormous." Down on Earth, President Elizabeth Harper was holding an emergency meeting in the White House. Her cabinet was split down the middle. Secretary of Defense Kevin Torres was pacing back and forth, arguing that they should accept immediately. "These aliens have technology we can't even understand," Torres said. "If there really are threats out there like they describe, we need their protection." Dr. Susan Mitchell, the chief science advisor, disagreed. "We don't know anything about these threats they're talking about. We've been watching space for decades. We have radio telescopes, space probes, observation stations. If there were planet-eating monsters out there, wouldn't we have seen some evidence?" Torres stopped pacing and stared at her. "Maybe these threats are so advanced that our primitive technology can't detect them. Or maybe," Dr. Mitchell replied, "these aliens are lying." The argument continued for hours. President Harper listened to both sides but couldn't make a decision. The whole thing felt too convenient. Aliens show up offering protection from threats that Earth had never seen, and all they wanted was 30% of everything Earth produced. Back on the Centaur, Jake was reviewing the alien transmission. For the 100th time. Something bothered him about it, but he couldn't figure out what. Lieutenant Sheen walked over to his station. Captain, can I ask you something? Sure, Bobby. What's on your mind? Well, sir, I was thinking about what the alien said. About protecting 300 worlds from these threats. What about it? Bobby looked nervous, like he was afraid to say something stupid. If these threats are so dangerous, and they've been attacking worlds for thousands of years, wouldn't there be some kind of evidence? I mean, space battles, distress signals? Something? Jake stopped what he was doing and looked at the young officer. That's a very good question, Lieutenant. Dr. Amanda Clark was in her laboratory at the Deep Space Research Center, going through every piece of data Earth had collected about space. She was the planet's leading expert on alien life, though, until today, that mostly meant studying bacteria. On Mars and ice on Europa. She pulled up the files from the Voyager probes, the Hubble telescope, and dozens of other observation missions. If there were planet-eating monsters out there, if whole civilizations were being destroyed, there should be evidence. Space was big, but it wasn't invisible. Her assistant, Carol Johnson, brought her more data. Dr. Clark, I've been going through radio telescope recordings from the past 50 years. If entire civilizations are being wiped out, we should have picked up some kind of signals. Distress calls, weapons fire, something. And what did you find? Nothing. Space is actually remarkably quiet. The only artificial signals we've detected come from Earth. Dr. Clark leaned back in her chair. That's either very good news or very bad news. What do you mean? Either space is much safer than these aliens claim, or these threats are so efficient, but they leave no evidence behind. Meanwhile, on the alien ship floating over New York, High Protector Zelfin was meeting with his advisors. The crystal ship was beautiful on the outside, but inside it looked more like a military command center. Screens showed surveillance data from hundreds of worlds. The humans are taking longer to respond than usual, one advisor said. Most species accept our protection within hours. Zelfin waved a hand dismissively. Humans are primitive. They probably need time to understand our generous offer. What if they refuse? No species has ever refused our protection, Zelfin said with confidence. They always accept once they understand the alternative. But back on Earth, something was happening that had never happened before in the Kelthoran Protectorate's long history. The humans were asking questions. In the White House, President Harper had made a decision. Before we agree to anything, I want answers, real answers. If these threats are real, show us evidence. If this protection has worked for other worlds, let us talk to those worlds. We're not signing anything until we know what we're really dealing with. When the message was transmitted to the alien ships, High Protector Zelfin felt something he had never experienced before. Confusion. In thousands of years of offering protection, no species had ever asked for proof. Tell us about these threats. Came the human response. Show us evidence. Our scientists need data before we can make a decision. For the first time in their recorded history, the Kelthoran Protectorate faced a species that wouldn't simply take their word for it. They faced a species that did something very dangerous and very human. They asked questions. The questions spread through Earth's governments like a wildfire. While 300 other alien species had apparently said yes to the Kelthoran Protectorate without thinking twice, humans did what they always did. They asked why Dr. Marcus. Webb sat in the control room of the Deep Space Observatory in Chile, surrounded by computer screens showing data from space telescopes around the world. He had been Earth's top astronomer for 15 years, and he had never seen anything like the threats the aliens described. His partner, Dr. Tony Martinez, pulled up charts on the main screen. Marcus, I've been going through every piece of data we have from the past 30 years. If there are things called devourers eating entire planets, we should see evidence. Missing star systems, debris clouds, something. Marcus nodded and pointed to a star map. Show me the Kepler system. The aliens claim they're protecting a world there. Tony typed commands and the screen changed to show a distant solar system. Everything looks normal. The planet is still there, orbiting its star like it should be. No signs of any battles or destruction? Carol Johnson, their data analyst, walked over with a tablet full of information. I found something interesting. The aliens say they've been protecting worlds for thousands of years. But when I look at radio signals from those systems, they all started going quiet about 50 years ago. What do you mean quiet? Marcus asked. Well, when a civilization develops, they usually send out radio waves. Television, radio stations, satellite communications. It's like a fingerprint that shows someone is home. But all these protected worlds stopped broadcasting around the same time, Tony frowned. That could mean the threats destroyed their technology. Or, Carol said slowly, someone made them stop talking. On the orbital station Centaur, Captain Jake Morrison was preparing for something that had never happened before. The Keltheran had agreed to let a small human team visit their ship. Jake would lead the mission. Along with Chief Engineer Rachel Thompson and Communications Officer Bobby Chun, Admiral Rodriguez gave them their orders in private. I want you to look for anything that doesn't match their story. If they're really protectors fighting cosmic threats, their ship should show signs of battle, weapons designed for fighting in space. Repair systems for combat damage. Jake nodded. What if we find proof that the threats are real? Then we sign their treaty and hope for the best, but if you find proof they're lying... She didn't finish the sentence. An hour later, Jake and his team were aboard a small shuttle heading toward the crystal ship over New York. As they got closer, the alien vessel looked even more impressive. It was smooth and beautiful, without any of the scars or modifications you would expect from a warship. High Protector Zelthan met them at the airlock. Up close, the alien was even more imposing. His silver skin reflected the lights of the ship, and his 4 eyes seemed to watch everything at once. Welcome aboard the Harmony of Protection, Zelthan said in his perfect English. We are honored to host the first human delegation. He led them through corridors that were too clean, too perfect. Rachel, the engineer, noticed that everything looked new. For a ship that had supposedly been fighting cosmic threats for thousands of years, there was no sign of wear or damage anywhere. Your ship is very beautiful, Jake said as they walked. It must be well protected from battle damage. We have excellent defensive systems, Zelthan replied. Our technology is far superior to anything the threats possess. Bobby Chun was recording everything with a small device hidden in his jacket. As they passed what looked like a weapons control room, he noticed something strange. The targeting systems on the screens seemed designed for hitting planets, not other spaceships. Back on Earth, President Harper was meeting with her science advisors. Dr. Susan Mitchell had been working around the clock, and she looked exhausted. Madam President, we found some disturbing patterns, Dr. Mitchell said. We managed to detect signals from some of the worlds the Keltheran claimed to protect. The problem is, these signals show signs of strict control. What kind of control? Communication blackouts at scheduled times, resource shipments leaving the planets on exact schedules, population movement that follows predetermined patterns. It doesn't look like protection, it looks like management. Kevin Torres, the Secretary of Defense, shook his head. You're seeing patterns that might not be there. Maybe this is just how advanced civilizations organize themselves when they're under protection. Dr. Mitchell pulled up a holographic display. Kevin, look at this. This is a protected world in the Proxima system. Watch the resource extraction patterns. The display showed a planet with mining operations running 24 hours a day. Massive ships regularly carried materials away from the planet, but nothing seemed to come back. Where do you think those resources are going? Dr. Mitchell asked. Torres stared at the display but didn't answer. Meanwhile, in a secret facility in Nevada, Agent Jennifer Stone was working on something that could change everything. She was part of a special intelligence unit that had been tasked with learning more about the Keltheran technology. Her partner, Luke Adams, had managed to intercept some of the communications between the alien ships. Jennifer, you need to hear this. I've been analyzing the signal patterns from their internal communications. He played an audio recording that had been translated by their computers. Ship 7 reports resource quota from Kepler system exceeded by 12%. Population compliance remains at acceptable levels. No signs of rebellion detected. Jennifer felt her blood run cold. Luke, play that again. Resource quota, population compliance. That doesn't sound like protection. That sounds like management of slaves, Jennifer finished at the Deep Space Observatory. Dr. Webb was making a discovery that would change everything. He had been using Earth's most powerful telescopes to look at the areas where the aliens claimed their great battles against cosmic threats had taken place. "Tony, come look at this," he called out. "I found something at the coordinates where the Caltheron said they fought a major battle against the Devourers last month." Tony hurried over to the screen. "What is it?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No debris, no energy signatures, no signs that any kind of battle ever took place there." Carol Johnson looked up from her computer. "I found something too. Remember how the aliens said the machine plague attacked a system in the Vega sector 6 months ago?" "Yeah? Well, I've been monitoring that system since then. The radio signals didn't stop suddenly like you'd expect if a civilization was destroyed. They gradually decreased over several weeks, like someone was slowly shutting down communications." Dr. Webb sat back in his chair. "Either these cosmic threats are incredibly good at cleaning up after themselves, or they don't exist," Tony said on the Caltheron ship. Jake's team was getting a tour of what Zelthon called the Protection Operations Center. The room was filled with screens showing dozens of different worlds. Each screen showed resource, extraction rates, population numbers, and what looked like productivity reports. Rachel Thompson pretended to admire the technology while secretly studying the displays. As an engineer, she could read the technical specifications. These weren't weapons designed for fighting space monsters. They were tools for monitoring and controlling entire planets. "High Protector," Jake said carefully, "these monitoring systems are very impressive. You must be able to track the cosmic threats very precisely." "Oh yes," Zelthon replied proudly. "We know exactly where every threat is at all times. We track their movements constantly." Bobby Chun caught the slip and made sure his recording device was still working. "Could you show us some recent battle footage?" Rachel asked. "Our military leaders would be very interested in seeing how you fight these creatures." For the first time since they had met him, Zelthon looked uncomfortable. "Battle footage is classified for security reasons. We cannot risk the threats learning our tactics." Jake nodded as if that made sense, but inside he was becoming more and more suspicious. A protection force that couldn't show any evidence of the threats they fought was starting to look less like protectors and more like something else entirely. As their tour continued, each piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. The Caltheron Protectorate wasn't protecting anyone from cosmic threats. They were the threat. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos had done many dangerous things in her military career, but breaking into an alien computer system was definitely the most dangerous. She moved through the Caltheron ship's data storage area like a shadow, her special operations training keeping her invisible to the alien sensors. The cultural exchange program had been the perfect cover. While Jake Morrison's team was getting the official tour, Maria had volunteered for the second group of humans visiting the ship. But instead of looking at alien art and technology displays, she was looking for the truth. Her target was what the Caltheron called their historical archives. If the cosmic threats were real, if the Protectorate had really been fighting them, for thousands of years there would be records. Battle reports, casualty lists, strategic plans. Something real. Maria found the data core in a room that wasn't on any of the ship diagrams the Caltheron had provided. The security was impressive, but not impossible for someone with her training. 20 minutes later, she was downloading terabytes of information onto a hidden storage device. What she found made her blood run cold. The files were organized by planet and species. Each folder contained detailed reports about resource extraction, rates, population control methods, and something called threat simulation protocols. Maria opened one file labeled Kepler 442b Alphany Species Management. The report was written like a business document. Monthly resource quota, 2.3 million. Tons rare metals. Population compliance, 96%. Threat simulation effectiveness, excellent. Recommendation: continue current Devourer projection schedule to maintain fear levels. Maria's hands shook as she read more files. The Void Hunters were Keltheron. Ships with modified energy signatures. The Machine Plague was a computer virus the Protectorate created and deployed themselves. The Devourers were mining robots that the Keltheran controlled. Remotely. Every single cosmic threat was fake. She copied everything she could find and made her way back to the official tour group. Jake Morrison saw her pale face and knew immediately that she had found something terrible. Back on Earth, Dr. Susan Mitchell was having the worst day of her career. The data Maria had stolen was being analyzed by teams of scientists around the world, and every piece of information confirmed their worst fears. "The protection racket is huge," she told President Harper during an emergency briefing. "They've been doing this for thousands of years. 300 species, all living in fear of threats that don't exist, all paying tribute to their supposed protectors." President Harper looked at the documents spread across the conference table. Each one was more damning than the last. Resource extraction schedules, population control guidelines, instructions for creating fake threat scenarios. "How many people are we talking about?" she asked. Dr. Mitchell consulted her notes. "Conservative estimate? About 50 billion intelligent beings across 300 worlds, all living as slaves and thinking they're being protected." Secretary of Defense Kevin Torres had been quiet during the briefing, but now he spoke up. "Even if this is true, what can we do about it? Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. If we refuse their protection and expose their lies, they'll destroy us." "Maybe," said Dr. Mitchell. "Or maybe their technology isn't as advanced as they want us to think. Look at this analysis of their ship designs." She pulled up technical diagrams that Earth's engineers had created based on Maria's stolen data. Their ships are designed for intimidation and resource transport, not warfare. All their weapons are made for precise strikes against planetary targets, not ship-to-ship combat. "What does that mean?" Harper asked. "It means they've never had to fight a real war. Every species they've encountered has surrendered immediately. They have no experience fighting someone who fights back." On the orbital station Centaur, Admiral Rodriguez was coordinating with military leaders around the world. If Earth was going to reject the Keltheran protection, they needed to be ready for the consequences. Captain Morrison had returned from the alien ship with his team, and their report confirmed what the stolen data suggested. "Admiral, that ship isn't designed for protection. It's designed for control. Their scanning systems can monitor every radio transmission on Earth. Their weapons can hit targets with surgical precision. This isn't a protection fleet, it's an occupation force," Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Our analysis teams came to the same conclusion. The question is, what do we do about it?" Chief Engineer Rachel Thompson had been working with teams of scientists and engineers around the world. "I think we might have more advantages than we realize. Their technology is advanced, but it's specialized. They've been running the same scam for thousands of years. They're not prepared for innovation or adaptation." Explain. "Their sensors are designed to monitor compliant populations. They're not military-grade detection systems. Their weapons are precise but not powerful. They're designed to make examples of individual rebels, not fight entire fleets." Meanwhile, in a secret facility in Colorado, Dr. Lavra Garcia was working on something that might level the playing field. She had been Earth's leading expert on electromagnetic pulse technology, and now she was adapting her work based on the stolen Keltheran technical specifications. "If we can disrupt their communication systems," she explained to her team, "their whole operation falls apart. They control hundreds of worlds through fear and coordination. Break the coordination and the fear starts to fade." Her assistant, Graham Phillips, was working on manufacturing portable MP devices that could be hidden on the Keltheran ships. The beauty of their technology is also its weakness. Everything is connected, everything is networked. One good pulse in the right place and their entire system goes down. Dr. Garcia smiled for the first time in days. And while they're trying to figure out what happened, we'll be telling the galaxy the truth. On the Keltheran flagship, High Protector Zelthan was becoming increasingly frustrated with the humans. 3 days had passed since their offer of protection, and Earth's leaders were still asking questions instead of signing the treaty. Perhaps we should initiate a small threat demonstration, suggested one of his advisors. A minor devourer attack on one of their orbital stations might convince them of their need for protection. Zelthan considered this. It was standard procedure when dealing with stubborn species. A small, controlled attack that demonstrated the reality of the cosmic threats usually convinced holdouts very quickly. Prepare Devourer Unit 7 for deployment, he ordered. Target their smallest space station. Make it look authentic, but ensure minimal actual damage. We want them scared, not destroyed. But the Keltheran didn't know that their communications were being monitored. Dr. Martinez at the Deep Space Observatory had been tracking their transmissions since they arrived, and his computers had finally cracked their encryption. Admiral Rodriguez, he called over the secure channel, you need to hear this. They're planning to stage a fake attack on one of our stations. Rodriguez felt anger rise in her chest. Which station? Mining Platform 7, it's our smallest. Facility, only 50 people aboard. Not anymore, Rodriguez said grimly. Evacuate that platform immediately. And Martinez? Yes, Admiral, record everything. If they want to put on a show, let's make sure the whole galaxy gets to watch. 2 hours later, Mining Platform 7 sat empty in space, its crew safely evacuated to other facilities. The Keltheran had no way of knowing that Earth was ready for their deception. When the fake Devourer attack came, it was exactly as the stolen documents had described. A mining robot with modified appearance and energy signatures approached the platform, fired precisely targeted shots that damaged but didn't destroy the structure, and then retreated after exactly 12 minutes to any species that didn't know. The truth, it would have looked like a terrifying attack by cosmic monsters, stopped just in time by their Keltheran protectors, but Earth's cameras captured everything. The robot's obvious artificial construction, the precisely calculated damage, the way it retreated on schedule rather than continuing to attack. Dr. Mitchell looked at the footage and felt a mixture of anger and satisfaction. We have them. This is proof that their threats are fake. President Harper made the decision that would change galactic history. Prepare a transmission to every inhabited system we can reach. Show them the footage, show them the stolen documents, show them the truth. And the Keltheran? Asked Torres. Harper's voice was steel. Tell them their protection services are no longer required on Earth. We found out what we really needed protection from. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the greatest threat comes from those who claim to protect you. The human transmission burst across the galaxy at the speed of light, carrying a message that would change everything. Dr. Susan Mitchell had worked with linguists and communications experts to translate the evidence into over 200 alien languages. The message was simple but devastating to all intelligent species in the galaxy. The Keltheran Protectorate has been lying to you. The cosmic threats they claim to fight do not exist. We have proof. The transmission included the stolen documents, the footage of the fake attack on Mining Platform 7, and detailed analysis showing how the Devourers, Void Hunters, and Machine Plague were all Keltheran creations. Within hours, the message reached dozens of star systems on the world of Kepler 442b. A young Alphany scientist named Korith was working late in his laboratory when the human transmission arrived. The Alphany were a peaceful species that looked like tall, slender humans with blue skin and large eyes. They had been under Keltheran protection for over 200 years. Korith had always wondered about the cosmic threats. He was a mathematician, and the attack patterns never made sense to him. The Devourers supposedly attacked randomly, but when he analyzed the data, he found patterns that looked more like schedules than random events. Now, reading the human evidence, everything became clear. The protection quota that took 30% of their world's resources wasn't protecting them from anything. It was feeding the very system that enslaved them. Korith ran through the empty corridors of the research facility to find his friend, Yalna, who worked in communications. Yalna, you need to see this. The humans have proven that our protectors are actually our captors. Yalna read the transmission data with growing excitement. Korith, if this is true, we need to tell everyone. But how? The Kelthoran monitor all our communications. Leave that to me, Korith said with a smile. I've been working on something they don't know about. For months, Korith had been developing a hidden communication network using old mining equipment. Frequencies that the Kelthoran ignored. Within hours of receiving the human transmission, he was broadcasting it to Althany communities across their planet. The reaction was immediate and explosive. In the capital city of Veltar, Althany workers stopped their resource extraction operations and gathered in the streets. For the first time in 2 centuries, they were asking questions about their protection. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the ocean world of Kepler 438b, marine biologist Dr. Nancy White received the human transmission through an underwater research station. The aquatic Chitani species had been under Kelthoran protection for 300 years. Believing that space monsters would drain their oceans, Nancy translated the human evidence into Chitani language and broadcast it through their bioacoustic communication networks. Within days, Chitani cities across their ocean world were buzzing with rebellion. On the industrial world of Proxima Centauri b, mining foreman Jake Sullivan had been suspicious of the protection system for years. The Kelthoran claimed they were protecting the Rakari people from threats that wanted to steal their mineral resources, but Jake had noticed that the protection ships were the only ones that ever took resources. Off-world. When the human transmission reached Proxima Centauri b, Jake was ready. He gathered his fellow workers in the main mining facility and played the evidence for everyone to see. The proof that their protectors were actually resource thieves was the spark that ignited a planet-wide rebellion. Back on Earth, President Harper was monitoring the galactic response from the White House Situation Room. Communications were coming in from dozens of worlds as species that had been enslaved for centuries realized they had been deceived. Madam President, said Dr. Mitchell, we're getting confirmation from 17 different star systems. Local populations are refusing to meet their resource quotas. Some are actively rebelling against their Kelthoran overseers. Admiral Rodriguez joined the meeting via secure video link from the Centaur station. The Kelthoran ships are moving. They're repositioning to respond to the rebellions. And Madame President, High Protector Zelthan has requested an immediate meeting. What does he want? He says humanity has made a terrible mistake and that we need to stop spreading lies before we doom the galaxy. Harper looked around the room. At her advisors, set up the meeting. I want to hear what he has to say. An hour later, High Protector Zelthan appeared on the main screen in the Situation Room. For the first time since the humans had met him, he looked angry. His silver skin seemed darker and his 4 eyes were focused with intensity. President Harper, he said without any pleasantries, you have made a catastrophic error. Your species? Arrogance has endangered every intelligent being in the galaxy. Explain, Harper replied calmly. The threats we protect against are real. By convincing other species to rebel against our protection, you have exposed them to dangers they cannot comprehend. Within months, the Devourers will consume worlds that have been safe for centuries. Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. Show us one. Show us one real Devourer that isn't under your control. Zelthan's expression grew even darker. You demand proof of threats that your primitive technology cannot detect. Our primitive technology detected your fake attack on our mining platform, Secretary Torres pointed out. It seems pretty good at spotting artificial threats. For a moment, Zelthan said nothing. Then his voice became cold and threatening. You will recall your transmission and order the rebellious worlds to resume their protection quotas. If you do not, we will be forced to demonstrate the reality of the threats we fight. President Harper stood up. Are you threatening us, High Protector? I am warning you. Without our protection, the chaos you have unleashed will consume everything. Recall your message or face the consequences. The transmission ended, leaving The Situation Room in tense silence. He's going to deploy the fake threats for real, Admiral Rodriguez said. They're going to attack rebellious worlds with their own weapons to try to prove the threats exist, Dr. Mitchell nodded grimly. It's the only play they have left. They can't admit the truth, so they have to make their lies become reality. Captain Morrison, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. Admiral, what if we're ready for them? We know their ships, we know their weapons, we know their tactics. They've never faced an enemy that was prepared for their tricks. Harper made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Admiral Rodriguez, prepare our fleet for combat. If the Kelthoran want to prove their threats are real by becoming the threats themselves, then we'll show the galaxy what real protection looks like. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Understood, Madam President. Captain Morrison, you'll command the first battle group. Your job is to protect the rebelling worlds while they organize their defenses. What about our defenses here on Earth? Torres asked. The Kelthoran ships are impressive, but they're designed for intimidation, not warfare, Morrison replied. They've been running a protection racket for thousands of years. They have no experience fighting an enemy that fights back. Dr. Garcia's EMP devices were loaded onto Earth's fastest ships, along with copies of all the evidence they had gathered. If the Kelthoran wanted to maintain their deception through force, they would discover that humanity had been preparing for war since the day they asked their first question. On Kepler 442b, Korath received a new transmission from Earth. To all rebelling worlds, Earth stands with you. We are sending military support and defensive technology. The age of false protection is ending. The age of true freedom is beginning. For the first time in 200 years, the Althany people looked up at their sky and saw something other than their protectors' ships. They saw human vessels arriving to help them fight for their freedom. The galaxy was about to learn what real protection looked like when it came from those who chose to help rather than those who demanded payment for manufactured safety. The war was nothing like anyone expected. For thousands of years, the Kelthoran Protectorate had never faced real resistance. Species either accepted their protection immediately or were quickly intimidated by a demonstration of the cosmic threats. But humans had changed everything. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earthship Liberty as it approached the Kepler system. His fleet consisted of 12 human vessels and 30 ships from rebelling worlds. It wasn't much compared to the Kelthoran's hundreds of crystal ships, but Morrison had advantages the aliens had never faced before. Captain, called Communications Officer Bobby Chun, we're receiving a transmission from the Althany planet. They're reporting massive devourer attacks in their mining sectors. Morrison smiled grimly. Put me through to all ships in the fleet. When the channel opened, he spoke to crews from a dozen different species. Everyone remember the plan. These aren't real devourers attacking the planet. They're mining robots controlled by the Kelthoran. Dr. Garcia's analysis shows they have a central control frequency. Take out the control ships, and the robots stop working. On the planet below, Korath was coordinating the ground resistance with his friend Yulna. The fake devourers had been attacking mining facilities all morning, but now that the Althany knew the truth, they could see how artificial the attacks were. The robots are targeting specific facilities, Korath observed. They're trying to make us think the cosmic threats have returned because we stopped paying tribute. Yalna pointed to her communication equipment. I'm tracking their control signals. They're all coming from the Kelthoran protection ship in orbit. Morrison's fleet engaged the enemy in the space above. Kepler 442b, the battle was unlike anything in galactic history. For the first time, someone was shooting back at the Kelthoran protectors. Chief Engineer Rachel Thompson had modified Earth's weapons based on the stolen technical data. Their shields are designed to stop space debris and asteroid impacts, she reported to Morrison. They're not made for military weapons. The first Earth missiles hit the Kelthoran control ship and punched right through its defenses. The beautiful crystal hull cracked like glass, and immediately the robot devourers on the planet below stopped their attacks and shut down. The Kelthoran commander of the protection ship sent a panicked message to his fleet. The humans have real weapons. Our defenses are useless against them. But the message was intercepted by the human fleet. Bobby Chun had been monitoring Kelthoran communications since the war began, and their encryption was no longer a secret. Similar battles were happening across the galaxy. On Proxima Centauri B, Jake Sullivan led Rokari workers in capturing their spaceport just as human reinforcements arrived. The Kelthoran tried to deploy their fake machine plague, but Dr. Garcia's EMP devices shut down their virus before it could spread. On the ocean world of Kepler 438b, Dr. Nancy White worked with Chitani military forces to defend their underwater cities. When the Kelthoran sent fake void hunters to threaten the oceans, they found the cities protected by human submarine technology and Chitani bioacoustic warfare. The tide of war turned quickly. The Kelthoran had impressive technology, but it was designed for intimidation and resource extraction, not actual combat. Their ships were beautiful but fragile. Their weapons were precise but weak. Their crews had no experience fighting enemies. Who fought back? Admiral Rodriguez coordinated the galactic resistance from Earth's command center. The key is speed, she told her commanders. The Kelthoran's strength comes from fear and coordination. We break both at the same time. Commander Carol Martinez led the final assault on the Kelthoran home system. Her fleet included ships from over 50 different species, all united by the simple truth that they had been lied to for centuries. The Kelthoran capital was a massive space station built around a small moon. It was beautiful and impressive, designed to show the wealth and power of the Protectorate. But it had never been built to withstand attack. High Protector Zelthun broadcast a final message to the attacking fleet. You fools! Without our protection, the galaxy will descend into chaos and war. You need us to maintain order. Commander Martinez responded for all the rebelling species. We don't need order imposed by lies and fear. We're choosing freedom and the right to make our own mistakes. The battle for the Kelthoran capital lasted only 6 hours. The crystal ships that had once seemed so mighty shattered under concentrated fire from the Liberation Fleet. The space station's defenses crumbled when the EMP devices shut down their central computer systems. Zelthun was captured when his personal ship tried to escape the battle. He was brought aboard Martinez's flagship, where representatives from dozens of species waited to question him. How many worlds? Asked Korith, representing the Althany. How many species have you enslaved with your lies? Zelthun looked older than he had before, his silver skin dull and his 4 eyes unfocused. Over 300 worlds. 400. Different species? Billions of intelligent beings? For how long? Asked Dr. Nancy White. Thousands of years. We've been protecting the galaxy for thousands of years. You mean enslaving, corrected Jake Sullivan. You've been enslaving the galaxy for thousands of years. Zelthun straightened up, trying to regain some of his old authority. You have no idea what you've done. Without central control, these worlds will fight each other. There will be wars, conflicts, chaos. You needed our protection from yourselves. Dr. Susan Mitchell, who had come to witness the end of the Protectorate, asked the question that defined humanity's place in the new galaxy. Why do you think intelligent beings need to be controlled to live in peace? We're offering something you never did. The choice to decide their own future. The transition to freedom wasn't easy. Some worlds had been under Kelthoran control for so long that they had forgotten how to govern themselves. Others had technological systems that depended on Protectorate infrastructure, but the galaxy was ready for the challenge. Dr. Amanda Clark led scientific exchange programs that shared Earth's technology freely with any world that needed it. Engineer Bob Thompson worked with alien scientists to rebuild industrial systems without the artificial limits the Kelthoran had imposed. The Galactic Freedom Council was formed 6 months after the fall of the Protectorate. Unlike the centralized control system the Kelthoran had used, the Council was based on voluntary cooperation and mutual aid. Ambassador Helen Parker, representing Earth in the new galactic community, often thought about how a simple question had changed everything. They offered us protection, she said during the Council's first meeting, but we asked what we needed protection from. That question freed a galaxy. President Harper visited the memorial that was built in New York City, right where the first Kelthoran ship had appeared. The inscription read, "To those who question, who refuse easy answers, and who believe freedom is worth any price, they offered us protection. We chose truth instead." Admiral Rodriguez, now retired, spent her time at the Deep Space Observatory, watching the busy space lanes filled with free trade and cultural exchange between worlds. Ships from hundreds of different species traveled freely, sharing knowledge and resources without fear. The Kelthoran who had surrendered were given a choice. They could return to their home system and learn to live without slaves, or they could join the galactic community and help repair the damage they had caused. Most chose to help, working to contact isolated worlds that still didn't know their protection was a lie. Zelthan himself was tried for crimes against the galaxy, but the sentence was not death or imprisonment. Instead, he was required to spend the rest of his life traveling to worlds that were still under protectorate control, telling them the truth about their protection. On his first mission to a remote world in the Vega sector, Zelthan faced a species that had been paying tribute for 800 years. When he told them their cosmic threats were fake, their leader asked him a question that sounded very familiar. "If the threats aren't real," the alien asked, "then what do we need protection from?" Zelthan looked at the crowds of beings who had lived in fear for centuries because of his lies. "From us," he said quietly. "You needed protection from us." The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most powerful question was the simplest one. The humans had asked, "From what?" And that question had set billions of people free. Freedom was spreading across the stars, one question at a time.